Good evening and welcome to another episode of Sports Business Insider. This is Denzel Snipes along with Sean Russi here. And we're going to pick up where we actually left off last week. We had an awesome discussion talking about why teams relocate and the ins and outs of a team relocating when it comes to like old stadiums, funding, city voting or voting amongst the citizens and everything. And then we also touched on a little bit on NIL. And what we're doing now is basically an NIL part two, going a little bit more in deep about that. So with that being said, before we go ahead and get started, be sure and check out the Sideline Sports Show Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Sideline Sports Network. Also, Top Rope Talk Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sideline Sports Network. Myself and the wrestling professor himself, Billy Cruz, with the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. Also, Hawk Talk with Dave DeRocher and Walt Thurman III, the Legion of Boom's very own. That is Tuesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Sideline Sports Network, as well as the Gauntlet Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sideline Sports Network. You can also catch it out James Tatum 12 on YouTube, Gauntlet Sports Media on Facebook, and my YouTube Denzel Snipes 13 as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. This is some NIL part two. So looking at where we left off, uh, and it looks like the game. The college football game. NCAA football is back on game systems, y'all, for the first time in 10 years, about 10, 11 years. I still have the last copy, NCAA 14, but we got NCAA 25 coming up. I don't know if you all have seen it. It's set to drop in June. You have seen some graphics and some promo videos and everything. It looks excellent, okay? There's going to be the features of transfer portals, the college football playoff, updated teams, everything. So, with that being said, there for the first time, because this thing is relatively in its infancy, name, image, likeness has officially entered the conversation for college football in video games. Sean, if you want to touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, and like we picked ended last week, we said where the players are getting about $600, as a minimum offer from EA Sports. As of the beginning of March, 11,000 offers had been sent out, 10,000 had been accepted. Um, Players will also get a free copy of the game, and they have an opportunity to make money promoting the game. Now, there's no percentage announced, or how they're going to decide, you know, how a player makes money directly off the game. I'm guessing they'll have a special link that they can post on their social medias. But no percentage was announced on that. Just $600 or more is their base offers, and 10,000 players have accepted that. Now, the 1,000 players that haven't accepted, the one thing they have said is there will be no way to put them in the game. Now, I know you remember, since you played back in the day, as I played back in the day, you could, create any player you wanted. If they weren't already in the game, you could
Yeah.
fix that. I remember, Charlie Ward was notorious for not being in the game.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, and you sent your PS2 memory card out, got all the rosters done.
Yeah.
Now there'll be no way to do that now. That they'll somehow
Wow.
they're going to monitor what the names are. I'm guessing there's going to be a filter in the game. I
Oh,
don't know
that's
how you may
crazy.
potentially eliminate nicknames or maybe abbreviations of players with two initials. I don't know how they would potentially eliminate that.
Hmm.
Um, but they are supposed to eliminate the possibility of any of those players that don't accept to even be in the game, because obviously that would be a violation of their name and image and likeness
Right.
branding. Notre Dame was actually the last team to decide to be in the game. They wanted to wait for some final rules to be finalized. Now all 134 teams are in the game. And
Good.
what I read this week is what EA has done is they've asked teams to submit not only uniforms, but theme songs, entrances, bowl game trophies, rivalry game trophies. So EA is really going all out to make
Oh,
sure the game
yeah.
is authentic as possible. For the first time in like you said, 10, 11 years that's been coming out.
Right. And with it used to be in years past. Like I know, especially for NCAA 14, say for like the Xbox 360 or something like that. Um, there were people that actually turned in like patches, like they uploaded them to where all you would go like every year after, like for the 15 season, 16, 17, and it would update the rosters for like every team, like every single year. And I
Yep.
guess now that's no more.
Yeah, no, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how how they do the filtering. The full name obviously should be an easy filter, but if someone just puts JR or whatever the player's name may be, are they going to
Hmm.
be able to filter that out? Is that something someone's going to have to catch and be like, oh no, that's that guy, that's
Yeah.
that cornerback on that team. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe these last 1,000 guys will accept their offers, but right now there's 1,000 guys still yet to be inserted into the game at this point.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. And so, with that being said, we'll go on to the NIL collectives. I know you got some notes behind there. This is where boosters come in, donors, paying the student athletes and everything. And if you could just give us your thoughts on basically how and what NIL is as an organization. This is formal education, you guys. You've seen it, you heard it all throughout the sports world, and now this is your firsthand education on what NIL is. Go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, what created this was the Ed O'Bannon trial from years ago, where
Hmm.
O'Bannon fought the NCAA for players to be paid, and for likenesses. That's honestly what shut down the NCAA games and the college games was that trial.
Mm.
Um, and years later, obviously, this is what's evolved. Is this name, image, and likeness marketing collectives that they've come up with. Really, what it is that they've made it legal. Booster tampering, boosters to get involved in terms of recruiting, even though that's not what the idea behind it was. The original idea behind NIL was to facilitate, empower, help, and advise athletes become more marketable during their college years, so they could make some money while they were college athletes,
Hmm.
versus just being college athletes and everybody being, we all knew they were deserving to be compensated in some way.
Hmm.
Um, so this was what originally was come up with, and some of the original rules, which may not be sustainable, such as one-time donations, or are allowed at this point from behind programs or to the general fund that these collectives come up with. But you're only allowed to do a one-time donation. So that's not a sustainable model. We'll get into more of what that may change into later. But these collectives, enable universities, especially Power Five schools, to just continue to be successful. And it's again, it's not supposed to be used as a recruiting tool, but I think we all kind of see what it's been used for.
Right.
For instance, the collective for the Texas Longhorn University, every offensive lineman got $50,000. Every walk on from BYU, they're free. They got free tuition, and there was 36 walk on players. Um, and again, because it's only one time contribution, you have to wonder, how many the size of these contributions, and when will they go out for some of these smaller schools, which is balance. It's not balancing, it's unbalancing the power again in college football and putting it more again just in the Power Five schools, because obviously we know they generate the most money.
Right.
It's estimated they have 7 billion in revenue just from Power Five schools. So you can imagine how the other conferences, it's hard for them to compete, especially now with the NIL landscape kind of changing the financial landscape for players. And even coaches have come out and said recruiting is not what it's been for years and years and years, because it's not, the players' main focus is not what can you do for me on the field, it's what can you do for me in my pocket.
Yeah. And we've actually thrown the theory around on past shows that the reason why Nick Saban retired was because he no longer has control in that aspect.
No, and it's funny you bring that up, because he's quoted to say all the things he's believed in, 50 years of coaching, all that no longer exists in college athletics.
Yeah.
And it's true, because unfortunately, the landscape has changed, and it's because there's no way to put like a salary cap or kind of control one university from making more money than another, or having a bigger booster program than another. It's really unbalancing the power. I mean, I understand now they're doing bigger college playoffs, but it's still the same big universities that are consistently in the top 10 when you really break it down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's with it's interesting to see how things are going to be 10 years from now, because there's going to be even more money and such. And I brought it up, I think, on this show. It's like, you get, like, if you, yeah, it was on the show, as a matter of fact. You sign that rookie contract in the pros, might be like 25 million or something like that. And I wonder if it's going to be the same come, I imagine it probably won't be that much, but maybe a little bit close to it 10 years from now. I mean, we're looking at something that has the potential to grow, but also at the same time be a nightmare for a bit of the old schoolers out there.
Yeah, and I think that's things that are starting to come up is, well, how do we go back and help the guys that maybe got hurt, like we talked about last week, kind of got get hurt and never make it out of the college, but would have made money in this landscape versus they made no money 10 years ago and that was it, had to go finish their major or whatever it was. And again, we knew most of the athletes at that time were not, a lot of them are not focused on the educational side,
No.
especially in the football realm. There's a rare player or two that goes all the way through and has a master's degree type thing. But I think that you know what you see more is these guys have football and football, and if football doesn't work out, then there's not a whole lot coming after that.
Right.
Um, and I think for a past player, you can definitely look back and go, man, if I at least even if I didn't make it, I would have made X, X, and X. And that's the NCAA has faced some of that. They've had past players come with lawsuits. They've lost some of these lawsuits that are now leading to jury trials, and it could lead to a lot of money coming out of the NCAA's pocket.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, with that being said, um, boosters. Everyone knows who they are. Maybe have heard of them and such. Depending upon what school you pay attention to or root for, boosters can be the engine sometimes when it comes to funding. So, if you would explain the boosters' role and also the Michigan State thing. Let's see, I see, we see they helped secure a deal with Coach Tucker.
Yeah, so there's two boosters in Michigan that actually came up with whatever Michigan was going to be short, which was about 95 million owed to him, and they came up with the money to fund that contract. And these are things again that boosters have done for years, but now in the NIL landscape, it's all legal.
Yeah.
Even Nick Saban, even though he's against NIL, he benefited from NIL in a way as well because his contract called for him to be the highest paid college coach anytime anybody went above him.
Oh wow.
Um, so I'm assuming, and this is just an assumption, that the boosters covered those raises. Um, and now the boosters are now getting involved in recruiting more publicly than they were. They were definitely involved in the past,
Hmm.
but now it's a more public thing. For instance, the offer that John Ruiz, who's now in trouble, under federal investigation, he made a $9.5 million offer to the quarterback of Miami. Um, and again, they're supposed to not be used as recruiting tools. They're supposed to be offered as their marketing stuff. It's not supposed to be used as an induction or an inducement to go to that school. But now states are pushing back on the NCAA as well. 6 states have passed laws to prohibit um, school schools from getting punished or athletes from getting punished for NIL violations, and 5 more are trying to do the same thing. So if those dominoes keep falling, I'm not really sure if the NCAA will be able to keep control of boosters at this point. I mean, it's already out of control. A
Hmm.
survey showed that 90% of athletic directors are concerned rules are being broken using the NIL payments as recruiting tools. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
high number when you think that there's 134 schools and 90% of those directors said, yeah, there's probably rules being broken.
Yeah, and I mean 90% of them. Whew, man, this is already murky waters as is. But it's one of those things where now you can't turn back because it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Just snatch the money away and now you're not gonna have any. But then they could always throw the whole, oh, well, then you won't play sports, or such. But I don't. It's getting ugly as is. I've always kind of felt like they should be compensated because look at how much money March Madness brings in per year. Look how much money the college football playoff brings in, and even the old BCS era, bowl season in general. You know,
Yep.
so I'd always felt that they should be compensated in some form. Is this method too far? Some may say yes already, and some may say, "Hey, we'll wait and see." On my end, I'd say we wait and see. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, like you said, we've kind of opened Pandora's box here. You can't shut it at this point. I think there's adjustments that have to be made to it. I don't, yeah, and again, with states pushing back, I think the NCAA may have to bend and just realize that unless they come to some sort of collective bargaining agreement across college sports, that boosters are going to uneven the playing field because one school's boosters does have more money than another school's boosters. I don't know how many schools boosters could come up with 95 million to secure a coach.
Yeah.
The list is small. I don't think UCF is coming up with boosters for 95 million to secure a coach.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that there's ways to potentially try to get some of the balance back. But I think there's also, because like we talked about earlier, because the model right now is not sustainable, they're
Hmm.
going to have to do something, because the donor led model, if it's one time donations, so just take the two Michigan State guys, whatever their donation was, those guys are now, according to the rules, should be out.
Right.
Um, so they have to figure out another way. There's been judgments that have said that the TV deals NCAA has, 10% of their value should be directly related to what the NIL players' value is. They're saying
Hmm.
10% of that TV deal is the value the players should be getting.
Hmm.
So that would be a way to possibly, maybe work up a collective bargaining, and do a revenue sharing in that collective bargaining agreement. But I definitely think they're going to have to shift. And with the court cases stacking up, without a shift, yeah, I think they're looking at a lot of back payments, and then a lot of future things to be questioned and subpoenaed, and those continue to face lawsuit after lawsuit if they don't kind of decide a new way forward for this thing.
Right. That's absolutely on this one. Well, and then our last topic, and that is the NIL moving forward. Well, actually, it's kind of our next to last topic. I guess the last one is like a last thought. But the NIL moving forward, what you got?
Like we talked about, I think it's going to need to change. But the court cases that are coming up, I think, is kind of what's going to force change. There's a court case, Johnson versus NCAA, which is seeking now minimum wage for college athletes. Not only should they be paid with NIL, this case is saying, but they should also at least get the minimum wage that a normal employee would get. And that's kind of where the N. O'Bannon thing was going years ago, that players should be paid some sort of wage. And this is saying, while NIL is doing that, it's still not a direct wage. There's no medical benefit when you get NIL. There's no, Medicare or Social Security taken out of your NIL check. Um, so and there's claims out there by the NCAA saying two-thirds of teams would have to go. Who knows if that's true or not? But I think you are getting to the point where you have to cut off the faucet somewhere. Like where is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Uh, we've now found a way to compensate their marketing. Again, it's an uneven field. Not all players going to one university, even though they may have NIL deals, are going to get the same value of that NIL deal if they were going to a Power Five university. That, I don't think that's ever going to change, even if you come to a CBA arrangement. The kids at BYU are not going to get the same value of an NIL deal as the kids at Alabama.
Exactly.
Um, and then to throw minimum wage into this to maybe balance that out, I'm not sure that's a balancing technique.
No,
And
I wouldn't
it
think so.
that trial's due to go to jury 2025. It would be the first time in 117 years that the NCAA has lost a trial that the players shouldn't be paid, in that
Hmm.
manner, and not the NIL manner, but in the employee manner. First time in 117 years that the NCAA would have lost a trial of that level. And they've got other things going on. They've got, Dartmouth basketball is trying to join and form a union for the Ivy League.
I was just
Um,
about to mention that because the last thought was, are they employees? And yeah, they actually did unionize. They became the first college basketball team to do so. The school actually officially recognizes them as employees.
yeah, and they have a similar trial for USC football and basketball. Now they're saying the players didn't put that together. They're saying that was a third party that was put together this lawsuit for USC. But there's a lot of talk about, why they are employees, why they aren't employees. But if the NCAA continues to lose rulings and these things continue to happen, it's something that's going to force their hand. If teams are allowed to unionize, if conferences start unionizing on their own, the NCAA will kind of have to go the route of almost a professional sports league. You're going to have to come to the table. The athletic directors are going to have to be treated as owners, and you're going to have to come to agreements on how you do things.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, once again, another solid show. Looking at the other side of NIL, or more in depth about it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to check out, like and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn as well. We also, Sideline Sports is on back on the Believe Network, so go check us out, follow, and rate us from there. Once again, Hawk Talk with Dave DeRocher and Walt Thurman the third, Tuesdays at 10:30 Eastern on Sideline Sports Network. Top Rope Talk, the top professional wrestling show on anyone's internet. Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sideline Sports Network. Sideline Sports Show Show, the flagship show, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sideline Sports Network. Also, The Gauntlet. Oh, where did it go? Ah, I must have accidentally. Well, The Gauntlet on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on not only on this network, but also on James Tatum 12 on YouTube and Denzel Snipes 13 on YouTube as well. So for myself and Sean Russi, this has been Sports Business Insider. We will see you all next week.